Hey there guys, here with Bo at Cryptocurrency Australia. Welcome to another video. Now today we have an absolutely incredible story. This one actually came out a couple of weeks ago, completely slipped past my radar and I'm not quite sure why, but I had to dig into it because the topic is truly fascinating. This story has got to be one of the most interesting stories to come across my desk this year. The headline of this article from Bitcoin.com is Satoshi Nakamoto could be criminal mastermind Paul Le Roux. Now, like I said, this story is truly fascinating. There are so many aspects to this. There is so much information. There is so much kind of deep intel that ties a lot of this story together. And we're going to dig into a lot of that today. So stick around, guys, and let's get into the video. So welcome back, guys, to the video. Now here we have this article here that was published on May the 13th by Bitcoin.com. Satoshi Nakamoto could be criminal mastermind Paul Le Roux. Now reading through the article here, one of the most enduring mysteries of modern times has produced another enthralling twist. Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's pseudonymous and enigmatic creator, has not been seen online in more than 8 years. Evidence has now surfaced that points to a new Satoshi candidate, whose known life has a number of parallels with that of Bitcoin's inventor. His name is Paul Le Roux, and if proven to be Satoshi, there is a good reason why his 1 million Bitcoin hasn't moved. The Rhodesian has been in jail since 2012. Truly incredible stuff. Now, getting into the case here, the Kleiman vs. Wright lawsuit. Now, in regards to this lawsuit, essentially at a high level, Craig Wright has been in court, I believe in the United States, or it's got it right here, the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, with the estate of David Kleiman. Now, I don't want to get into that in a lot of detail in this video, but just know for context that there is a legal case going at the moment between Dr. Craig Wright and the estate of David Kleiman over, I believe, some wallets holding a significant quantity of Bitcoin. Now back to the article. The Kleiman vs. Wright lawsuit unfolding in the Florida courts has been filled with misdirection, red herrings, mistruths, forgeries, and bizarre theories, often floated by the defendant Craig Wright. Document 187, Dr. Craig Wright's motion for protective order, was recently filed with heavy redaction because Wright supposedly has a well-founded fear that these criminals and their associates would seek retribution if they learned of his involvement in their apprehension and incarceration. Someone forgot to redact one of the corresponding footnotes, however, enabling a sharp-eyed sleuth to identify the master criminal in question, Paul Le Roux. The 46-year-old cartel boss is a character as flamboyant as Wright himself, but cut from a different cloth. Readers may already be familiar with Le Roux's life story, which surfaced in a 7-part series on Atavist and subsequent book titled The Mastermind. As the blurb summarizes, he was a brilliant programmer and a vicious cartel boss who became a prized US government asset. Now, this is just absolutely fascinating. Over here on Atavist, you can see here they did a 7-part series on this guy, which then ended up turning into a book. Episode 1, A Journey to Understand How a Real Estate Agent in the Philippines became the target of a criminal mastermind. And they've just got here a small blurb about the mastermind. He was a brilliant programmer and a vicious cartel boss who became a prized US government asset, just as we read in that article there. The Atavist magazine presents a story of an elusive criminal kingpin, told in weekly installments and also now in a book. So back to the article. It has now been suggested that Paul Le Roux may be Satoshi Nakamoto, and that Craig Wright is in possession of encrypted hard drives containing Le Roux's multi-billion-dollar stash of Bitcoins. This is just where it gets unbelievable, guys. It's a crazy theory, and yet on closer inspection, there is a prima facie case for Bitcoin's mastermind being criminal mastermind Le Roux. And here's a picture of Le Roux in his younger years. Paul Le Roux built a criminal empire, but did he also build Bitcoin? As his Wikipedia page, the very same page which escaped redaction in the Kleiman vs. Wright case notes, Paul Calder Le Roux is a former programmer, former criminal cartel boss, and informant to the US Drug Enforcement Administration. He created E4M, an open source free Windows disk encryption software program, in 1999, and is a suspected creator of the open source TrueCrypt, which is based on E4M's code. Now guys, this is where it's truly going to blow your socks off, this part of the story. Then it drops a bomb. Le Roux is currently in US custody for ordering the assassinations of 6 people. I'm going to skip this part because there's not much value there. Actually, here we go. This part, there is quite a bit of value right here. Le Roux is a one-man movie waiting to happen, and that's before the Bitcoin connection is thrown into the mix. In one of the many passports Le Roux owned, he goes by the Satoshi-like name of Solotshi. Solotshi, that's it. And that's just the beginning of the curious coincidences. How weird. You can see a photo here of his passport where it actually says Solotshi Calder Le Roux. How crazy is that, guys? Reading on. A Daily Mail article also slipped through the redactor's net, leaving a trace of the URL visible in document 187, cited at the outset. Calls Le Roux a real-life Bond villain behind a cocaine and gun empire spanning 4 continents, who's now turned super snitch, and quotes US agents as calling him a very bad guy. Now, just a little bit of background on this document 187. This comes back to the case that Craig Wright is involved in with the Kleiman estate, and I'll just read the intro here. Dr. Craig Wright's motion for protective order filed under seal. Now, I believe the kind of synopsis of this motion is to seal, which basically means to protect from the public eye some information pertaining to this case under Dr. Craig Wright's purview. So him or his legal team would have been the ones that actually filed for this motion. So reading on. After his initial limited deposition, Dr. Wright was ordered to answer certain questions concerning the identities of 2 individuals and the names of certain websites. At his deposition, Dr. Wright had agreed to answer those questions in camera, but refused to answer them without additional protection against public disclosure. Dr. Wright's well-founded concerns over public disclosure arise from the highly sensitive nature of the information, which 1, could endanger him and other persons, 2, implicate national security concerns, and 3, would almost instantly be breathlessly reported on and circulated worldwide. The docket and documents attached to court filings in this high-profile case repeatedly have been reprinted and widely shared on the internet within 24 hours. Dr. Wright is willing to answer these questions and does so below, but requests an order that his answers remain under seal and not be shared with anyone other than this court and counsel of record. The court has granted Dr. Wright's motion to file this motion under seal DE 152, and you can actually see some redactions in this document itself. Very, very interesting. So back to the article. As the Anon who posted on 4chan's Biz message board on May the 12th, after spotting Le Roux's name in the right case, postulated, Bitcoin was the project of a evil genius, Paul Solotshi Calder Le Roux. He intended it simply for the purpose of money laundering. Unfortunately, soon after he went quiet with the Satoshi identity, he was captured by law enforcement, and he's going to spend the rest of his life rotting in jail cell. Even if Le Roux did create Bitcoin, it does not follow that money laundering was his goal. It would likely have been an extension of his obsession with cryptography, which can be traced back to the 90s. Before Paul Le Roux broke bad, he was by all accounts a brilliant programmer and privacy ideologue. In 1997, he began work on E4M, encryption for the masses software, which is capable of encrypting entire disks and optionally of plausible deniability. And here's a little blurb from Wikipedia. In the politics section of the E4M website, Le Roux published a kind of manifesto stating that governments are increasingly relying on electronic data gathering, citing projects such as Echelon linked to the 5 nation states, which would later become known as Five Eyes more than a decade later. He stated that encryption is the only way to preserve civil liberties. Now, Five Eyes is a very real thing. It's something I have actually personally looked into a little bit, and it's basically there's 5 countries, and that is Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the United States, that came to an agreement to share intel between these different countries, I guess if certain requirements were met. So very, very interesting, the connection to Five Eyes there. So reading on, the E4M manifesto finishes. Strong encryption is the mechanism with which to combat these intrusions, preserve your rights, and guarantee your freedoms into the information age and beyond. Paul Le Roux, author, Encryption for the Masses. Absolutely fascinating stuff, guys. Especially considering there's been so much discussion around who Satoshi is, and this guy's name has never come up. I've never, ever heard of this name. This is all extremely new information that's coming to the fore, and I imagine it's coming to the fore based on what is going on with Craig Wright. So, reading on. 10 clues that point to Le Roux building Bitcoin. This is really, really, really interesting. For those intent on comparing Satoshi and Le Roux's personas for similarities, there are several attributes and actions that align, plus a few that don't. Given that both entities were adept at assuming false personas and concealing their natural language and idiosyncrasies, identification is no easy task. Here's what's known about the pair that points to them being the same person. Number one, the curious Satoshi Solotshi monikers. That to me is really, really interesting. I think it's too similar to be a coincidence. Both were programmers familiar with C++. Both had a strong interest in cryptography and privacy. Both were wary of authority. Both had an interest in online gambling. And interestingly, Bitcoin's initial code had a poker client included. How crazy is that? Both were well aware of the difficulty with traditional payment systems. Le Roux on account of the illegal prescription drug racket he was running. Satoshi's spelling and language, analyze, color, defense, bloody, hard, is consistent with Rhodesian Le Roux's. Satoshi disappeared in early 2011 to move on to other things around the time that Le Roux was transitioning from software genius to cartel boss. With tens of millions of dollars in cash, Le Roux would have had no need to cash out his Bitcoin once the price began rising. If anyone could have hidden wallets containing 1 million Bitcoin, it would have been the creator of disk encryption software, TrueCrypt. And then there's this post from 2002, 7 years before Bitcoin was released. And this is coming from this j@gmail.com. I have this idea of a future with virtual peer-to-peer banking, a kind of decentralized and secured system. Gone would be the times that governments and banks can track and interfere with our money transfers, or even interfere with the total amount of money on Earth. My envisioned system would have a fixed total amount of money, but each money unit, say a virtual coin, is divisible indefinitely, so a kind of deflation would replace inflation. The total value of the money in the world would be a fixed number. It poses no problem for liquidity, because the currency can be divided anytime. However, maybe people will not spend their money much, because its value will increase often. Other problems raise in the areas of security, malicious use, and how to come towards such system from current systems. These are just ideas. I'd like to hear comments or about net resources on this subject. Fascinating stuff. That was from 2002. Now here's where it actually gets even more crazy, guys. So strap in. It doesn't read like Satoshi's voice, but it does read an awfully lot like someone's early idea of Bitcoin. The IP address of the author has supposedly been traced to the Netherlands, a country where Le Roux once lived. For all of the surface evidence that suggests Le Roux could have been Satoshi, not all of the points align. In 2009, for example, when Satoshi was diligently refining Bitcoin, Le Roux was already dabbling in drug smuggling and gun running. Would it have been possible to maintain such a double life, one chaotic and the other scholarly? And here's the next section. This is where it just gets unbelievable. A credible Satoshi or 4D chess from Craig Wright. In an IRC chat dating from around the time of the Bitcoin Cash ABC SV split, user CSW connects Bitcoin Talk and R Bitcoin moderator Thamos to Paul Le Roux, claiming that the pair used to be partners before Le Roux was arrested. He also asserts that Thamos is still in the pharma spam business, which dovetails with the Le Roux's illegal pharmaceutical business. There is a caveat to all of this, of course. Craig Wright is a habitual liar. Again, I'm just reading from the article here, guys, whose every utterance must be fact-checked. Given that Le Roux's name has been linked with Satoshi since late 2018, it is possible that Wright latched onto it and wove it into the fanfic he's been crafting for the Kleiman case. As such, any evidence from the mouth of the man known as Fake Toshi should be treated with caution. Few aside from Calvin Ayre believe that Craig Wright created Bitcoin, but many believe that by luck or design, he could have been lurking in the background from near the start. Wow. Now here's where I find it just, honestly, where this goes is so interesting. Reading on. Could this involvement have been due to Wright serving as an informant on Le Roux, himself now an informant following his arrest in September 2012? It sounds fanciful, but it's certainly an intriguing notion. As one anon theorised, Craig Wright was an employee of Le Roux who was vaguely aware of the Bitcoin project. Craig was an informant who helped bring down Le Roux, and after his arrest, Craig managed, via longtime friend and partner in crime, Dave Kleiman, to get his hands on the wallets that hold 1 million Bitcoins. But unfortunately for Craig, all of Solotchi's coins are locked away in secure TrueCrypt volumes. TrueCrypt being another software that Le Roux developed. He's been trying for years to crack them, but with no success. Another of Craig's longtime friends, Calvin Ayre, has set up warehouses of computers to try and crack Solotchi's password and unlock the vast fortunes. His mining activity is simply a front to make these massive data centers look legitimate. Craig is being set up as the real Satoshi so that when the coins are finally unlocked, they can legitimately sell them off. Wow. I mean, again, just reading through this post and regardless of whether there's any validity to this or not, it's certainly an extremely interesting theory. And here's some images. I believe these are emails, perhaps being used in the case itself. Actually, it says here, in this document from the Kleiman versus Wright case, Wright claims to have access to TrueCrypt files that he cannot access. It has been speculated that these are not Dave's, but rather Paul Le Roux's. So reading on, as we get near to the end here. If the Rhodesian crime boss is Satoshi Nakamoto, it means the two biggest contributors to Bitcoin's early success, Paul Le Roux and Ross Albright, are both in the custody of US authorities. There, they will likely see out the rest of their lives, while the rest of the world profits from the innovations of these flawed geniuses. Interestingly, in little more than 24 hours, Got Satoshi promises to reveal the identity of Bitcoin's creator, which it didn't. Actually, it was just basically looked to me just like a spam for some kind of project. While the cryptosphere will not be holding its breath in anticipation, the countdown adds further intrigue to the most enduring mystery of the digital age. I mean, wow, guys, I really don't even know what to say, and I have no idea how this slipped through. How I did not see this come up over the past 2 weeks. It's truly fascinating. Here's some other things that I was looking at to kind of bolster a little bit of what's going on. This was an article released on May the 8th. Blockchain researchers mock Craig Wright's unsealed Bitcoin address list. The ongoing lawsuit between the relatives of Dave Kleiman and Craig Wright continues to unfold as a filing has been unsealed that shows a list of addresses tied to the first 70 blocks Wright claims to have mined. However, not long after the redacted list was unsealed, researchers at WizSec Security studied the addresses and are convinced his list is merely a lazy copy-paste from the blockchain without any cryptographic signatures to support his claims of ownership. Look, guys, either way, this is extremely interesting. This is an ongoing story, and I'm going to stay tuned into this one to keep you guys updated on what is going on. My personal gut feel in this at the moment is it really is too complex to know what is what. I think the end result may be one of those stories that is so different to what everyone has been speculating about that it's just going to completely blow everyone's mind. Or maybe everything will just die a natural death in terms of the whole story and it'll go away and a lot of the legal proceedings will stop. But what I do think is that while ever there's lawsuits happening between Craig and people that he has sued for defamation and the case with Kleiman, by law, things are going to be brought to the front. There's going to be discovery, the process of which are documents, emails, photos, and other kind of evidence have to be brought into the court and subsequently brought into the public domain. So whatever's going to happen, I think as long as legal proceedings continue, more and more information is going to be brought to the front. What do I think? I guess, what is my opinion if this guy, this this Paul Le Roux ends up being Satoshi Nakamoto. I think Bitcoin has progressed so far now in its journey that whoever created it, whoever was involved, I don't think it's really going to matter. I mean, it has been the intellectual property, I think, of the contributors over the last 10 years in the community that have built it, that have worked on it, that have used it, to the point where no one, I think it might have a short-term impact, but long-term, I don't think it's going to affect it much. Bitcoin is this beast, you know, that is used now around the world. And anyway, I think it's absolutely fascinating. It certainly doesn't change my bullish case on Bitcoin whatsoever, but I do find it extremely, extremely interesting. So guys, that's it for the video today. If you enjoyed it, please like it. Likes are always appreciated. Links to everything will be down in the description below. If you're not subscribed, make sure to do so. I really appreciate you coming on board. My name's Bo, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.